Hello, BookTube. The other day, Brian at Bookish, my arch nemesis, my bête noire, my eyebrow baby, made a fantastic video in which he goes over some points, some tips, some pointers for how to be a BookTube viewer. In quasi-response to a couple of videos that came out recently, including one by me, about how to be a BookTuber. In his video, Brian goes over 10 points about being a BookTube viewer. And I wanted to go over his points in a video, in a response video of my own, and then elaborate on them just a bit, if you'll indulge me. Because, of course, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I have been booktubing for over 5 years now, and I love it. I dearly love it. I honestly look forward to it every day. Even when the day is crowded and gnarled with other deadlines, with other responsibilities, when I start the day, when I stop thinking in dog, when I stop reading, when I start getting back into the human world, one of the first things I do is think, what kind of conversations am I going to have with my imaginary BookTube friends? Will it be a 5-video day? Will it be a 4-video day? What are the things that are most pressing? Those thoughts are now part of my reality, when 10 years ago I wouldn't have known what you were talking about. So this affects me. I also interact, to use the horrible 21st century word, with my the people who watch my videos as often as I can, as much as I can. So let's go over Brian's tips for BookTube watching. I'll leave a link to his video down below, and he prefaces it by saying that YouTube throws numbers in the faces of content creators all the time. I couldn't help but chuckle when I heard that line right at the beginning of his video, because most of the stuff that he shows of the background in YouTube Studio in his video is stuff I've never seen before and would have no idea how to find. I've made more videos than anybody, and YouTube does not constantly throw numbers in my face. You have to care about it to care about it. And TLDR, spoiler warning, you shouldn't care about it. But I just wanted to sort of qualify that just a little. If anybody is going to notice that YouTube throws numbers in your faces all the time, it's going to be me. And as I've said in response to videos that make similar points to this in the past, I don't see that, and I don't care to see that. So it's possible not to see it. If it were impossible, if it were the way Brian describes it here, implies that it is, that YouTube shoves these things in your face and there's no way to do this without that, then I would see those things. And I don't. But anyway, let's move on to his points. So tip number 1 is that he gives you is subscribe. And I don't know that that's a tip for BookTube viewing, but if you find a channel that you really like, I can certainly attest to the fact that watching that subscriber count go up is a burst of enthusiasm. It's a burst of air, of motivation for a smaller... Something wrong, baby. For smaller channels where, you know, you're wondering, like Brian points out, if you're howling into the void, watching that number go up can really mean something. And a subscription doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you much in the way of attention or effort or anything like that. After a certain point, I think booktubers tend to focus too much on it. I know of some booktubers who pay attention to their subscriber count, whether it fluctuates hour by hour, day by day. Even one subscriber, if they lose one subscriber, they obsess about it for days, which is, of course, not healthy. But, yeah, tip number 1 is subscribe. Feel free to do it. Tip number 2 is commenting. Comment on a video. And here, I agree. I will have further thoughts on the subject myself. Brian says a lot of tips here that I agree with. It's just that, is his way, he also says some things that I not only violently disagree with, but almost vomitously disagree with. So we'll get to those. Fortunately, they're all grouped together. Number 3 is like. Hit the like button. And in this, I've made a point on this myself many times, and I will make a point on it when I get to my elaborations. But that is absolutely something that you should do. A person who's making video content and putting it out into the world, for a lot of people, especially the mewling introverts that populate BookTube, that's a leap. That's a big risk. That feels like a gamble. And they're hoping that what they did will entertain you. The least you can do on BookTube, YouTube is still free. the least you can do is like the video. And I think Brian mentions this himself, but it's always been my practice. Hit like on the video before you watch it. Hit it as soon as you click on the video. Make those two things synonymous. Click on the video and hit like. Like is not a reflection of whether or not you agree with every point that the booktuber is making in the video. That is a very juvenile way to look at things. You are liking the fact that they made the video, not whether or not you agree with what's in it. So I would say just blanket like things. It helps to make the booktuber feel more validated. It also helps with the algorithm, the celebrated, infamous YouTube algorithm, which we'll be getting to. It haunts this Brian's video, and it has to haunt my video as well. You shouldn't care whether or not it helps the algorithm. The point is that seeing someone like what you spent time doing is encouraging to the person who does it on a human level. And tip number 4 that Brian gave was to watch the videos. Again, he points out that view time feeds the algorithm, helps the algorithm to favor your content, to draw more eyes to it or whatnot. Brian doesn't know how the YouTube algorithm works, and neither do I. Neither does anyone. Which makes it a pretty nefarious thing to be supplicating. We'll get to that point in much greater detail, but I would say watch the video because someone made the video. Again, I would say it doesn't matter what the algorithm wants or doesn't want. Watch the video because someone made it. And hope anyway, that they are not just riding on fumes for the last 5 minutes, that it will all be intentional content. Definitely watch the videos. Then tip number 5 that Brian gives is to share the video. And the example of sharing that he gives in his video is, of course, something that I am going to object to. He's not saying share a video that you really like. The example that he mentions in his own video, and I probably had other examples in mind, is to share his own videos, which is... It is another symptom, one of many symptoms, you don't have to look far at all, to see the corrosive effect that social media has had on ordinary adult behavior. Sharing your own videos, much less doing it compulsively, in order to get more eyeballs on your videos is a very vain thing to do. And for 2,700 years, until social media, vanity was considered bad. It was considered something to avoid. But if you see a video that you really like, not your own video, but somebody else's, something that took a lot of work or that made you chuckle, sharing it on social media to bring thought-provoking material or a chuckle to somebody else, not an inherently bad idea. But when we leave tip number 5, we head into a period of inherently bad ideas, unbelievably bad ideas. Because tip number 6 is to hit the bell for notifications. The notification bell on the video, wrote Android YouTubers and booktubers will always say like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and make sure to hit the bell for notifications so that you're alerted every time I make a new video. Some of them lie even further and say that if you don't hit the bell for notifications, the new video by them might not even show up in your subscription feed, even if you are subscribed. My response to this has nothing to do with our little corner of BookTube. It has nothing to do with BookTube proper. It really doesn't even have anything to do with YouTube proper. It's with electronic devices just in general, and that is turn off all notifications for everything, across the board. Your devices should never be able to demand your attention. Never. They should never be able to do that, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's the electronic room cleaning device that for some god unknown reason you have in your house. I don't care if it's your electronic listening valet up on the shelf. I don't care if it's your phone. I don't care if it's Facebook. Turn off all notifications. Go into your phone, go into your tablet, go to your settings, and turn off all notifications. Mute all sounds. Do that today. Do that right away. Your machines should never be able to demand your attention. It will condition you. It is meant to condition you. It is designed that way. Don't abet your own conditioning. Don't do it. I know so many people, especially people who are old enough to know better, who are totally at the beck and call of 6 different devices in the course of their day. If that device pings or snoozes or rings or alarms, they drop whatever they're doing in order to pay attention to it. That's obscene. Absolutely obscene. Turn off all notifications. So don't Not just don't hit the bell for notifications on a booktuber, just because a booktuber tells you to, but turn off notifications on everything. Not just booktube, but all the rest of it. Silence your devices. Count on your own attention span. Count on your own intentionality. Do you want to watch this woodworking channel or a pet training channel, or don't you? If you want to watch it, you won't need the machine to tell you, hey, there's a new video, don't you want to watch it? Hey, I notified you an hour ago there was a new video, I'm notifying you again. Hey, it's been 12 hours since I notified you, aren't you going to watch this thing? That is corrosively bad for your mental health. So turn them all off. Turn all the notifications off. So that was our first objection. My first objection to Brian. And it was a fairly bland one, because it's an objection to the action just in general, not just when it comes to BookTube. But the next one, the next tip number 7 from Brian deals with monetization. Now, Brian and I don't agree on the subject of monetizing your BookTube videos. And unlike on many other subjects where we disagree, where it's a huge amount of even give and take, on this subject, Brian is simply wrong. He is trying to defend mindless greed because, again, social media in the 21st century has so normalized mindless, across-the-board greed that it seems a little bit weird that it even needs defending. It is indefensible. Greed at all is indefensible, but mindless greed for pennies is completely indefensible. You should not monetize your BookTube channel. In his video, Brian goes out of his way to show you that it makes him no money at all. Basically, no money at all. Couch cushion money. He does it anyway. He does it anyway. Don't do it. Not just because it's extremely obnoxious, not just because if you monetize your channel, you're going to start to care about monetization. Do you want to be that person? You don't want to be that person. But you will automatically start to care about it if you do it and make it an active element of your BookTube channel, not only for those 2 reasons, but also for the third reason, which is that's what you'll reduce it to. If you monetize your channel, you will reduce it to monetization. Brian talks in his own video about videos of his that perform well or perform poorly. And I've heard that from other booktubers too, who are making pennies a year. These are personal interactions. These are conversations. Do you look back at the end of a week and say, well, some of my conversations with friends this week perform better than others? No, you don't. And if you did, you would rightfully be a Patrick Bateman-style ghoul. So don't do it. Don't do the behavior that will reduce you to that level. Do not monetize your channel. Don't enter money into this equation, especially when the impulse is revealed to be so degrading because it's not any money. It's a tiny amount of money. Don't do it. You are degrading yourself for no reason. It is absolutely no justification to say, well, if YouTube's going to monetize my channel anyway, I might as well do it. As St. Ma used to say, if your friend jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you jump too? Anyway, but it's not monetization that is tip number 7. Monetization was the grounding, the sort of context for tip number 7 in Brian's video. His actual tip is watch an ad that someone puts on their video. Don't just put up with them. Don't just bemoan their existence and wait eagerly for you to be able to skip them, but watch one from beginning to end. Watch a commercial that I've stuck on my channel for 30 cents a year. I don't just want you to see that I did that and maybe think a little less of me because I'm so money grubbing for couch cushion change that I will do this. And I will make you sit through a commercial to find out the epic changing thoughts I had on To Kill a Mockingbird. Not only that, I'm not only going to do that and risk you thinking that I've just sold out the minute I had a chance to make a quarter. The minute I had a chance to make $1. I sold out immediately because I have been so corroded by social media in the 21st century that says side gig, side gig, side gig, monetize everything, side hustle everything. I've been so degraded by that I automatically did it. Not only am I willing to risk you thinking that of me, but I now want you to watch these videos. I want you to watch these ads. At least one of them, at least a little, for at least 30 seconds to help me make that 30 cents an hour, that 30 cents a year. This is not only a bad tip, it's a corrosive one. It's an evil thing to ask someone to partake in your own degradation, to degrade themselves, to get right down in the trenches with you. That suddenly becomes so important to you that the booktuber gets 60 cents a year that you're willing to sit through an ad for Tripvago or whatever. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Invest in ad blocker. Wait patiently with the ads on mute to skip them. Do whatever you have to not add any more stupid pitch commercials to your life. What on earth? I have watched Brian's video a few times. I cannot imagine what was going through his mind. Not only to say, well, I added ads to my videos even though they don't make me any money. They make me a paltry sum of money. But in addition to doing that, I also want you to watch them. Absolutely not. Do not do that. As Bookinds and Books put it in her response video to Brian's video, it is not your job to feed the algorithm. That was tip number 7. And tip number 8 is, well, nothing could be as bad as making one of your tips for being a better BookTube viewer watch one of my commercials. Nothing could be worse than that for its Borg-like collective degradation. Nothing could be worse than that. But tip number 8 is pretty bad. I didn't know about it until I watched Brian's video. In the row of actions underneath every video that you watch, one of those actions is thanks, and it has a little dollar sign, little coins. And I guess that means that you can use that button to simply give someone money. You can give the YouTuber money right then and there while you're watching their video. So not a question of any kind of GoFundMe or anything like that, or buy me a coffee or one of those ads, but simply you can click on it and financially reward the BookTuber. I didn't know that existed, and I wish that it did. The tip here that Brian gives, Brian does not say you should tip someone, that you should pay someone with that thanks button, but he says if you want to, certainly he won't object, and probably many BookTubers wouldn't object. The like button, a thoughtful comment, is just fine. Anyway, unless you're going to give them $1,000. You're not going to do that, which brings us to tip number 9, which is to join a Patreon. A lot of BookTubers set up a Patreon. I have one myself. I laughed when I watched this tip on Brian's video because he mentions that on Patreon you get specialized content. Previews of videos before non-patrons get them, or videos that are only for Patreon subscribers, that sort of thing. Of course, I have a Patreon that is despised and neglected, and I don't have any specialized content in there. On the introductory video that's on my Patreon, I mock the whole idea of Patreon and suggest that the higher up in the subscriber tiers you go, the more psychotherapy you obviously need. And yet, some of you are kind enough to subscribe to my Patreon. That is wonderful of you. It's really great. I console myself that the few people who've subscribed to my Patreon did it with their eyes wide open. I've made no shortage of videos. You know perfectly well that it's done tongue-in-cheek. You're just doing it as a sign of thank you. And I really appreciate it. That is really nice. But I don't hawk it. I put the link to it on every video, mainly because Chris and Giselle Rhodes helped me to make the video on Patreon that describes my Patreon scheme. They helped me to make it. I think it's kind of clever. But if a BookTube creator has a Patreon and you really want to support them, go right ahead. Good luck to those other BookTube creators in getting more people to subscribe to their Patreon than I've ever got to do to mine. And yet I can't complain, because my subscribers are the weirdest and best subscribers anywhere on YouTube. You studiously avoid my Patreon, but you pour credit into the Brattle. Store credit. You're calling it in all the time. You send me presents all the time. It's just that one way that you won't do. But anyway, tip number 10 from Brian is, fortunately, he turns the ship around just a bit. After having told you to watch a commercial on his behalf, again, no idea what he was thinking. Ordinarily, I can piece together what's going through that aged, decrepit mind of his, but not in this case. I had no idea where that came from. But tip number 10 is to remember to be nice. And here, Bookinds and Books, Elizabeth Bookinds and Books seconded that, and I will third it, of course. You should remember to be nice. The point here, as has been pointed out a few times, and as I pointed out on this channel a few times, is we are real people. There are people here that are making these videos. The fact that you're encountering them online doesn't mean you can just drop a scathing, stupid, coarse, shallow insult and just move on with your day. You can do that, but you've insulted a person, and you would never do that face-to-face. You would never do that in person, so don't do it. Be the change you want in the world. If you are bemoaning how savage a place the internet is, then don't be savage on the internet. Anyway, those were Brian's tips on BookTube watching. And I have a few elaborations that I want to do of my own to that list, which is largely good except for that little core of unholy stuff in the middle. My first tip is the one I've already mentioned, which is be liberal with your likes. Hit like on the video. Bookends and Books points out that that is not communicating with the booktuber. That is communicating with YouTube and telling them what you want to see in your feed. But the booktuber sees it, and it can't help but feel to them like at least someone else in the room, right? And that is how I choose to view it. It's you saying, I have seen this. I appreciate that you made it for me. I appreciate that you did that. You don't need to, and you did. I would argue that in the course of time that you've been watching BookTube, you have got a lot of enjoyment out of it that you didn't pay anything for. A like is a small thing to do. Then my elaboration number 2 was to leave a comment. And here, again, I'm saying don't do this for the algorithm. Do it for the community. Do it for the creator and for everyone else who's in the comments field. There are lots of people, the lifeblood of BookTube, who don't make videos. They just go from video to video leaving comments, and a lot of their comments are fantastic. I've chosen to co-opt that process just a bit myself by leaving my email on every video, so that if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to have any impact, any footprint on a social media like YouTube at all, you can simply email me at any time. It's my actual email. It's my inbox. It's not some dummy email about anything you want. I've co-opted that process just a little when I've known YouTubers, not so much booktubers, but general YouTubers, who had no idea what was on their subscribers' minds because they don't leave their email. Of course they don't. And they also never read their comments. So they're just literally howling into the void. But they're getting $3,500 a week. So I guess that takes the sting out of howling into the void. But for me, the comments field is still really important to me. But a lot of people now, hundreds of people now, contact me individually, and I wouldn't have that any other way. Tip number 3 for me, elaboration number 3, it has to do with leaving comments. It's a tiny little thing, a pet peeve of mine, which is I am not one of those larger YouTubers. I don't ignore my comments field. I don't disdain it. They do. There are a lot of people, even on BookTube, the big booktubers, who hate the people in their comments field and regularly disdain them when they meet, as UK booktubers sometimes do, have called them vermin. Use that word, vermin. These are booktubers you've heard of. These are booktubers you might even subscribe to. And they hate their comments field. They would never go in and answer comments in a million years. I'm not like that. I really like my comments field. I spend time in there. I've had some subscribers or viewers over the years express surprise at that. And that's because, again, social media has degraded us to the point where we express shock if someone is simply decent, is simply involved, simply genuine. But nevertheless, I do have a few pet peeves when it comes to comments, and one of the biggest ones is usually newcomers on the channel. On my channel, it's usually not people who've been here for a while, and that is that because I'm involved in the comments field, the comments are directed to me. You don't go into the comments field and say, hey, who is this guy? Or can you believe what this guy said? This guy is watching. He's reading your comment, and it's kind of rude. In much the same way as you can imagine it in real life. If you went to a crowded dinner table at a restaurant, it singled out one person who you would hear what they were saying, but you'd only comment on it to other people. Can you believe the comment this guy just made? But never actually respond to the person yourself. Everyone at the table would consider you the soul of rudeness. Same thing here. Comment to me. You're commenting on one of my videos, comment directly to me. Then my tip number 4 is also about comments. Sorry if this is a little bit of a hobby horse. I believe that I leave the comments alone after a while. The point I want to make here is that the comments, at least on my videos, I would argue on a lot of the videos in this little corner of BookTube, are conversations. They're conversations with people that you know. They're interactions with people that you know. So they're not an opportunity for you to either rudely correct something that you heard in the video. These are not encyclopedia entries. I don't pre-script. Most people I subscribe to on BookTube don't script their videos. If I get a date or a fact wrong and your comment is, you got that fact wrong, I'm going to consider you to be, an arse-sniffing little punk, just like anybody else would. So don't do it. Don't leave comments like that. And also, the comments field, again, they are directed to me. So your comment should not be a place where you drone endlessly, where you condescend endlessly, where you seek to teach me something. I know that I am a bee-sting-lipped, snub-nosed, washboard-ab, raven-haired 28-year-old, but I'm I'm not going to put up with you condescendingly teaching me anything, okay? I'm just not going to do it. And neither should anyone else. My younger BookTube colleagues shouldn't do it either. That's not what comments are for. You shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't just drone in a bubble either. If you have left 100 comments on BookTube on various channels over the last 2 years, or let's say 20 comments, and you have never once in all that time asked a question or responded directly to anything in the actual video, you're doing comments wrong. They're not a stage for you to soliloquize. They're a conversation. So don't do that. That would be another tip of mine, would be personalize your comments. That would be the same thing also for leaving comments. You know, I realize that not everybody has all the time in the world or knows what to say. But a comment that says, you know, great job, means a lot less to me than a comment that's actually responding to something that I said. But let's... Okay, I'm not going to leave comments completely behind. I want to leave a couple of other cautions first. One has to do with simple etiquette, which is going to look tempting, but don't do it. Don't leave a link in a comments field. Don't say, hey, great video, really thought-provoking. I have a channel of my own. Here's a link to it. Don't do that. Don't do that. That is gauche. That is pushing and boorish. Don't do that. If someone is interested in you because of your comment, they will check to see whether or not you have a BookTube channel of your own. So will I. I'll click right through the comment. But clicking right through the comment brings me to another caution, which is sex bots. Automated bots of any kind. A lot of channels don't have them. My channel is absolutely infested with them. Every new video that I post, every video that I upload, gets within a minute 2 sex bot comments. And they're right now, the fad that they're in is that they're in foreign languages, German or French or whatever. They always have a hot link in them. Don't ever click on those videos. I get rid of them. I report them to YouTube uselessly as porn, because that's what they are, every single time it happens. So I do that reporting about 15 or 16 times every day of my life. But even I miss some of them. And even I don't get to them sometimes. If one happens while I'm reading, when I'm offline, I don't get to it until the next morning. If you see those comments with the hot link, do not click on them. It is disastrous. It's not just that it will lead you to a bot site, it's that it will almost in all cases co-opt your keyboard. Sometimes with malware, sometimes with ransomware, so that you don't get your computer back. And I have no control over that. I have no idea that those comments were there. If YouTube were responding to a channel like mine, I have, 12,000 subscribers? And I'm reporting 16 times a day that pornography is appearing on my channel. I've been doing that for a year. There's been no action whatsoever. So YouTube obviously makes money from those things, or they would have shut them down. I don't put them there, and I want them gone. So don't help that destructive process. Don't click on anything like that. Don't do it. Only click on human beings. Don't click on bots. It's not just a question of you clicking on a bot and it sending you to the wrong website. You will infect your own machine, sometimes disastrously. So don't do it. I'll clean up as many of them as I can get to, as fast as I can get to them. But that's another piece of advice for being a BookTube viewer, is be wary in the comments. And another point that I wanted to make, it's not so much to do with the comment section as it is with videos. As a BookTube viewer, kindly try to remember that BookTube videos are not personal challenges to you, right? Now, there's a wide variety of different approaches, of different presentation styles for BookTubers. Some are very friendly and smiling, and always remember to couch things in terms of, I thought this, you might think different, that's okay, that's perfectly all right. Some BookTubers are a little more forthright, a little more abrupt in their phrasing, a little bit more sure of themselves, or comfortable in making pronouncements. It's just a difference in presentation. It's not an attack on you. It doesn't, most of all, require a attacking response. It's just a presentation style. And as has been pointed out on many videos, and Brian points it out himself in his video, if at the end of the day you've watched a couple of videos from a BookTuber, or maybe more than a couple, a dozen, and you just don't like what you're seeing, don't hate watch. Just unsubscribe. Don't watch that video, that BookTuber anymore. I would argue this is true for YouTube as well. There's nothing more of a waste of time, and to use my favorite word in this video, corrosive, than to hate watch something. Don't do it. It's a complete waste of your time and the other person's time, especially if you comment to let them know, I still hate you. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Now that's the extreme I'm talking about the softer version here, which is to view every video as a challenge. I imagine I get more of that than a lot of booktubers do. I am a lot more opinionated than a lot of booktubers. I am, as a lot of you will know firsthand, perfectly willing to change my opinions. But I'm not going to do it because you hector me. I'm not going to do it because you drone at me. I'm not going to do it because you lecture me. I'm not going to do it because you know some piece of literary trivia that I don't happen to know. I'm not going to do it for any of those reasons, and it's not friendly. It's not a friendly interaction. And that's what we want in these comments, is a friendly interaction. And that goes to another tip of mine. It's a very rare thing. I've hardly ever seen it. But I wanted to address it anyway, and it also involves the fact that of friendly interactions, which is what we're going for in the comment section. And that is, again, this is very rare, but I have seen it happen, and I wanted to address it since I'm talking about the subject. Don't try to pit one booktuber against another. Okay? I know that's going to sound like a little bit of a strange piece of advice coming from a video in which, at the beginning of the video, I was liberally attacking some of the points made by another booktuber. Brian and I are friends, and we love giving crap to each other. We love going at each other with hammer and tongs. It can look serious if you don't know that, but both of us go out of our way to assure you that it's true. You should not only respect that, but imitate it. Join the fun, rather than coming to my video in order to sort of turn me on against some other booktuber, or go to some other booktuber and try and turn them against me. That is an iniquitous thing to do. It's, again, a waste of time. It's not going to work. But it's also iniquitous, so don't do it. Just don't do it. This is the kind of a theme running through a lot of my advice, both response to Brian's tips and my own tips, is when you see a horrible, soiling, degrading behavior that's in front of you as an option to do, don't do it. Don't do it. There's a little dopamine rush that comes from being your worst self. Social media has been built as a business model to encourage that dopamine rush, and not any other. The dopamine rush you get from being a good person is less. I acknowledge that. That doesn't mean you should give into it. When you see a row of options in front of you on how to behave, don't do the soiling, degrading one. Don't do it, is my advice. And then I'll finish up with my last tip is the same as Brian's and everybody else's, which flows naturally from the other things that I've said, which is to be nice. This is a real living community here. You could make friends here, real friends. Friends that you might never meet them face to face, but they will be real friendships. If you are a BookTube commenter, but not a booktuber yourself, you know what I think about that. Jump in and try it. If you don't like it, you can delete your videos, but you don't know what you're missing if you don't try it. But B, if you are a commentator and you don't make videos, you might not be aware of the extent of that. But it is real. It is very real. And that's the community that you are brushing up against in this little corner of BookTube. I can't speak for the rest of BookTube. In fact, I've spoken about the rest of BookTube quite a bit. They hate you. A lot of big channels actively hate you, which is why you'll see them collaborate with only people who have roughly the same number of subscriber count, who have the same safe opinions that they do. Subscriber and sponsor safe opinions about books they haven't read, about enthusiastic opinions they do not hold, about a reading life that they abandoned a long time ago. This is what brings them their money. That's not this. This little corner BookTube is made up of real people, a lot of whom have got to know each other in real life. The door here at Hyde Cottage, now that it's been reattached to its hinges, is wide open for real-world visitors. That's the community that you're brushing against when you are in the comments field. If you're new to this little corner of BookTube, you might not know that. Allow me to tell you. That's the community that you're brushing against. Why not take advantage of that instead of setting yourself in opposition to it? So those are some tips of mine on how to be a BookTube viewer, which basically boils down to don't succumb to the worst temptations of social media. One of the strongest of which goes back to Brian's tips, which is it's not your job to feed the algorithm. Just disregard that piece of advice from him and concentrate on the good pieces of advice that he gave in his video, to which I will link down below. But anyway, that's enough from me. Those are some tips. That's a response video of my own. I will wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.